Vagicidal. Chapter 14. Isn't she lovely? She was born a beautiful baby girl in the middle of summer, and that's what she was named, Summer. She grew up to be as sweet as pie to anyone who came her way. She loved meeting new like-minded people, indulging in new experiences and having stimulating conversations. She always played with others as a child and was a social butterfly as a teen, even with the ones others deemed as weird or different. She eventually met a guy one day when she was just the tender age of 14, he was 4 years, her senior. Many members of both of their families disapproved of the relationship due to the age difference. However, it was the beginning of a blossoming teen romance. Her father had not been in the picture since she was elementary school age, which left her with no positive male guidance or protection. At age 16 she and her first love had their first child. She adored that baby boy and eventually dropped out of school to care for him full-time. The child's father over time became very violent and addicted to drugs, compelling her to move on for her safety, as well as her offspring's. A year later, she enrolled in a night school program to obtain the high school diploma she left behind. During that time, she met another guy. She didn't find him very attractive, and he wasn't her type, but he was funny. He walked her home from school every night like a perfect gentleman and was persistent in his pursuit of her, so she eventually gave in. They became an item and he introduced her to his family. She fit right in, his family became her family, and a year later she was pregnant with her second baby at age 18. Unfortunately, she miscarried after being 4 months pregnant due to the stress of learning her man was also in another relationship with someone else simultaneously that was pregnant with his child. This hurt her more than she had ever been hurt before. The mental anguish pierced her harder and lasted longer than the physical abuse from her previous relationship. She was not close with her mother and had no other wise, mature female adult to confide in throughout the ordeal. She eventually forgave him, they tried the relationship again, she conceived and they gave birth to a healthy baby girl. His family was great, and even treated her firstborn like he was their biological grandchild. The young couple eventually moved into their own place together, but a couple of years later, she asked him to leave since he could never find the time to be home with her and the children due to his busy lifestyle of hanging out with the fellas after work every day and frequent weekend visits to the strip club. As a single parent with 2 children to take care of now, she eventually regained her focus, enrolled in college, obtained a full-time job while his parents continued to be instrumental and helped with childcare as she endured years of working various jobs and intense studying. During this process, she met a handsome successful business owner, who was impressed with her ambition, resilience, intelligence, and complimented her on how she had the whole package of beauty, personality, and brains, which he found hard to find and resist. However, after the second date, he learned she had 2 children and was no longer interested, stating, he was not ready for a ready-made family. Although saddened, she respected his decision, thanked him for his honesty and kept it moving. Thereafter she met a nice-looking, street pharmacist. It was instant attraction, he took good care of her and provided her with the finest of everything: vacations, 5-star restaurants, shopping sprees, multiple cars to drive, even helping her pay her way through college. However, 4.5 years later, it all came crashing down when he was sentenced to a long prison term for one of his various street crimes. She was deeply hurt by the absence of her man, but in the recesses of her mind knew that it was probably best since she was beginning to endure domestic violence, and he was hardly ever home due to his paper chase, and who knows what else he was chasing. 8 months later, when she was able to mentally move on, she came in contact with a good-looking lightly huge brother who came to the electric company to pay his bill where she was employed as a clerk. He sent her flowers to the job, spent quality time with her, took her on nice dates, and allowed her to drive his expensive car. He then says the L word, "I love you." Finally, she screams mentally, she thinks she eventually has the long-term true love she has dreamed of all her life. At last, love, something she felt she never genuinely received from her father or her mother. Conversely, he turns out to be a master manipulator. After their first intimate encounter, several months into the relationship, he dropped off the face of the earth, refusing to answer or return any of her calls. She is crushed, but like every other time, move on. A year later, she meets a different promising potential paramour, but he made it crystal clear in the beginning that he was not interested in a relationship, only a special friend. She goes along with it, hoping it will flourish into what she truly desires. After 6 months, she realizes he refuses to budge from the original arrangement and has to cut him loose. She feels dejected, lonely, and confused, trying to figure out, what is she doing wrong? Summer eventually graduates from the university and she and the kids moved out of the state for a fresh start. It's a little bumpy initially, but exciting and things eventually smooth out. She meets a striking guy who has no ambition, but treats her well, gives her foot massages after a long day at work, starting dinner when he gets off from his job, and is a very well-mannered gentleman to her, and an awesome stepfather to the kids. It lasts a few years, but she eventually had to part ways with him since he preferred congregating more with his brothers and their friends, playing video games and smoking ganja all weekend. Additionally, his lack of ambition is totally swallowed by hers. She was well out of his league, she knew it, and decided to give it a chance anyway. A decision she did not regret since she always lived by the mantra, "You'll never know if you never try." She then runs into a guy 7 years her junior. She's skeptical at first due to the age difference, but relents after an extensive dialogue reveals his advanced maturity level, intelligence, chivalry, and ample ambition, which was matched by hers. The relationship was beautiful, and they became engaged, but just as all of the other experiences, it begins to cave in when she sees that his baby mama drama, past drug felony that was hindering him from obtaining a better career and child support debt was taking over his life, not to mention, he started taking out his frustrations on her. He even displays anger management issues, and wrapped his hands around her neck during a few heated arguments towards the end of their relationship on more than one occasion. She returns his engagement ring, and partially moves on. Yes, partially, they linger for a couple of months after he moves out trying to see if the relationship can be salvaged. She hates to let go, but realizes it is the best solution since nothing seemed to be improving. Summer finds herself back to square one. A single working parent with no ideal significant other, not to mention with no help from her children's 2 fathers. Nevertheless, she continues to progress in school and with life, consistently bettering herself, a vacation in here and there with female friends, or an occasional nice well-to-do guy, but still longs for that one true love who comes without so much baggage, was not too far from her level with morals, dreams, character, ambition, and who can financially hold his own with street smarts, as well as the ability to maneuver through the corporate world, start a business, or the resourcefulness to generate a decent legit income. To her it seems impossible to meet such a mate. The men who are financially stable, want to be players, thinks that women should pursue them, or are mentally unstable, and the ones who are still living with their mother and or underemployed and have little or nothing to offer are the ones who want a relationship. All of her female friends tell the same accounts of their experiences, the ones who live out west, up north and in the south. She feels despair and thinks she will just have to face her reality. The good men are not available, the available men are not good, the others are locked up for good or are looking for the same goods as the women. The random guys she continue to meet and date here and there are mostly interested in sex, expect the women to trade places to take on the male leadership role, can't converse intelligently about any subject, don't have themselves together, or are just too closed-minded. This trend continues until her children reach adulthood and move out on their own. Her years of sacrifice, ambition, and her work have afforded her the almost perfect life now. Summer is able to live in an upscale neighborhood, equipped with immaculately manicured lawns, a pool, tennis court, purchase a brand new sports car off the showroom floor, dresses to kill with a mean shoe game, and has a decent-sized bank account. However, she's still missing one key element, the love of her life. She is getting fed up with a life of heartache and headache from men, memories of being played, physically abused, as well as ignored by those who prefer the low-hanging fruit, and have no desire to put in the effort to climb to the top of the tree, and she can no longer take it. She starts beginning to feel as if she has nothing to live for and deals with it by putting on some soulful R&B music, lights several fragranced candles, and pour rose petals all over the heated bedroom and marble bathroom floors. She slides into the garden tub filled with nice, hot, steamy, bubbly water, soaks, thinks, and relaxes for a bit. She then reaches over to grab her pen and paper and begins writing the following heartfelt poem. She entitled, Mentally Mangled by Men. There was once this older girl, and up to this point, she had various guys in her world. She thought each would treat her right, but no, not quite. They gave her much strife. Throughout her young adult life. The first cheated. The second hit her. The third tried to get with her friend. The fourth, after he hit it, he never called her again. The one after that, played so many games, he slipped up a few times and called her somebody else's name. The last one would look her directly in the eyes and tell her artificial lies. She was tired of the jive. So she cocked a 45, not to harm them, was what she decided. She put the gun between her thighs and blew her own insides. However, she did survive, and figured she'd never be used for sex again. Even if they tried, she was physically okay, but had mentally died. After the long comforting bubble bath and cathartic poem, she pulls herself out of the garden tub and grabs her pink, pearl and chrome plated pistol she had locked away for years that she is thankful she never had to use on anyone, inserts the barrel inside her vagina and pulls the trigger. Click, click, pow. Yes, Summer decided to off herself from below as a symbol of her feeling used and abused after she had given her heart, soul, and loving to these men in her life who would never do right by her. She was vagicidal. Fortunately, Summer survived the attempted vaginal suicide incident and had plenty of time to contemplate while she was in bed for several weeks recovering. She learned a valuable lesson, that it was not her turn or time to cross over and exit the universe, and that the one thing she could have and should have done was recognize the flags of all of the men in her past, before allowing herself to fall for them, and have to endure painful relationship breakups that were all bound for failure before they begin. Allowing the street pharmacist, the guy with no ambition, the man with the baby mama drama and drowning child support debt, falling for someone's words and superficial actions were all mistakes that could have prevented the inevitable heartache she endured over the years. Lessons she had to learn all the hard way. Summer now travels to different universities, community centers, and high schools, telling her story and speaking to young women about waiting, taking their time to learn someone before jumping into a relationship, using protection, flags to be aware of, how to not settle for someone who is not on their level, how to take advantage of their time while being single by enjoying and living life to the fullest, how precious life is, and how to never attempt a permanent solution to a temporary problem. She receives thousands of direct messages, letters, and emails annually from young girls and women around the world, thanking her for her insight, advice, and for sharing her horrific experience, as well as showing their gratitude for how she helped prevent them from getting into toxic relationships, or motivated them to get out of the relationships they were currently in that were predestined for failure. Words of wisdom. If you lived through something that could have taken you away, recognize your purpose and start sharing it today.